With the municipal election on November 2nd, Newton News continues its candidate profiles to help inform voters of where each challenge candidate stands on certain issues. This week, we have Ward 5 Councilor-at-Large incumbent Andreae Downs, who is seeking re-election against incumbent Deb Crossley and newcomer Rena Getz.
Ward 5 City Councilor-at-Large Andreae Downs is running again for re-election. She says she's ready to take on the big challenges in Newton. First elected in 2017, Downs is a firm believer in giving back to the community by helping move forward goals and projects as a public servant.
I've always wanted and felt that it's, our duty as citizens to give back to the community that's given us so much. And in this case, in 2017, I felt it was particularly important to up my game and ensure that our institutions of governance and our social institutions would continue and continue to cohere. So I wanted to run to make sure that Newton at least would continue to function as a haven for good government and good civic participation, and I knew it wasn't enough to just be an activist.
Downs lives in Ward 5, home to the villages of Waubun and Newton Upper Falls, which have the busy streets of Walnut and Beacon. And as autumn rolls around, so does more cars and traffic, which has been a source for headaches for some Newtonians. Downs solutions, biking, and bike lanes.
We've made a lot of progress. We got bike lanes on Beacon Street finally marked out, on Walnut Street finally marked out, new lanes on Parker Street, which will make it easier to get to middle and high schools as well as an elementary school there. And now we have funding for a more detailed and prioritized bicycle, pedestrian, and accessibility plan. And I'm really looking forward to digging in on the details on that.
Aside from traffic congestion, carbon emissions are another reason why Andreae Downs wants to put more bikes and bike lanes onto Newton streets. She says that more biking would encourage less driving of cars and vehicles, and therefore less carbon dioxide going into the air.
This unlocks access to essential things for our children, people who can't drive, our seniors, and so it makes the city more equitable and more climate friendly.
While Beacon and Walnut Street are great for biking and bike lanes, some areas like Beethoven Avenue are too small and narrow, and it only has room for one car in one direction. For these types of roads, Downs has another idea in mind.
Right now we're putting in a raised intersection at Beethoven and Puritan. The idea, and also shorter crossings to Richardson Park. So Beethoven's fairly narrow, and the idea for me is to make streets that could be used as high-speed cut-throughs instead into calm, safe streets so that we don't have to demarcate bike lanes per se. Bike lanes are really useful on very wide streets.
Roads and infrastructure are important to Downs, as she served in 2012 as the director of the Wastewater Advisory Committee and now as the chair of Public Safety and Transportation. But even with the challenges of the environment and safer streets, there is still another crisis Downs wants to talk about: the decline of local news. Downs has worked as a freelance journalist for several publications, including the Newton Tab, and she sees a need for information to be distributed fairly and paid for fair. One idea that she and the city council have is to create a Newton version of ProPublica, the New York nonprofit organization that produces investigative journalism.
So it's a crowdsourced nonprofit news organization that goes into depth where in the places where the daily newspapers and even the weekly newspapers don't have the funds anymore from advertising to fund that.
The program has never been done before, but for Councilor Downs, taking on the unknown is part of the job.
It doesn't stop, and I'm sure you've felt this too. This past year, things have been a lot harder because of the pandemic. It's harder to reach people. It's harder to even do your normal job. So it just feels like there's an awful lot on all of our plates, and I'm committed to the work. I really want to continue to help move this community forward and keep the community together and build good spaces for people to gather and to talk to each other.
Adam Bass, Newton News, Waubun.